I've been saying this for a while. The Clippers really would be foolish not to use this guy here. This guy here, Robert Covington. I mean, of course, his stats don't speak at all. His stats don't say everything, but stats is not everything all the time. Sometimes you got to look at the totality and the real reason why a player can affect the team in a good way and affect the opposing team in a bad way. And Robert Covington is one of those guys. I've said before, you got two forwards in Kawhi and PG in Kawhi and PG. Now, whether you want to say Kawhi is the power forward or PG is the power, Kawhi is the small, or Paul's a small, and Kawhi is the power. It doesn't matter. However you want to slice that, however you want to put it, doesn't matter. But when one of those guys sit down in the game, Ty Lue can insert Robert Covington. It's no reason why he can't, because he's a power forward also. And he's about just as tall. He might be a little bit taller than Kawhi and PG, honestly. And like I said, he plays the position, not, of course, to their level because he's not a superstar, but he's a guy that understands his role. He's a guy that's willing to accept his role. And he's a guy that wants to help a team win. And I've heard his interviews. I've heard him speak many times. And the way he plays on the floor, he just shows a winning attitude, like when he plays and he goes out there and, plays to the highest of his ability. And really, when you look at Robert Covington with his length and, his being able to guard position 1 through 5 on the floor, there's no reason why he shouldn't be on the floor. I think Ty Lue's stubbornness really has gotten the best of him over this last year or so since they've had Robert Covington. But it's going to have to cease, because I know Marcus Morris is one of the staples there because he's been a part of the culture for a while. But Marcus Morris really just doesn't have anything too much left to give the Clippers, honestly. And when he does come in, I get wary every time he's in the starting lineup, or I get wary anytime he has to come off the bench, because you just don't know what you're getting from him from day to day, night to night. You just really don't know. I mean, the money they paid for Marcus Morris a few years ago, 4 years, $60 million, he hasn't lived up to that to me, because like I said before, you've heard me say it. When they had Reggie Jackson, Hot Sauce Jackson, when they had him, Reggie Jackson was the third best player on the Clippers, and he only had a $22 million contract, and he got signed after a year or two after Marcus Morris had been there, who had basically flopped and choked and didn't show up in any of the playoff games. He didn't show up in the bubble. He didn't show up the year after that against Dallas, where Luka and them was threatening the Clippers. The year after that, where they kind of threatened the Clippers, when Kawhi had to turn into the superhero that he was to help them get to the next level or the next round. It's just, Marcus Morris just ain't it. And then the only thing I see Marcus Morris do consistently is foul people and get under people's skin and things like that. Be a bruiser, rough guys up, things like that, which I'm not saying that, that doesn't help at times, getting under the other opposing team's star skin where it kind of throws his game off. But you still should be able to contribute a little bit more than that. You should be known a little bit more than that, because when the Morris twins came into the league years ago, when they both were drafted, I think, to the Phoenix Suns, they were both of them were a lot more scoring. They had a lot more in their arsenal scoring wise. Now I understand age comes with all that type stuff, but they both always had a jump shot. So I'm like, Marcus Morris' jump shot, it should be more consistent. It should be more consistency with him overall. He's been in the league a long time, and that's the reason why I said, because he hasn't really shown that throughout the years that people think that he should have, and he was supposed to be the third best player on the Clippers, and he has never lived up to that, in my opinion. You might feel differently. Leave any comment if you do, but my point is, there's no way Reggie Jackson should have came on this team a couple years ago and took that third spot and was really more consistent than Marcus Morris was. Because when Kawhi and PG were down that year, that season where it was just Luke Kennard and Reggie Jackson and the rest of the crew, I mean, Reggie Jackson held it down for a lot of that time. You know what I'm saying? And that's my point. You're not getting the production out of Marcus Morris you should. So there's no reason why Robert Covington, who can go in there and play position 1 through 5, who's a lot more lengthy, he's taller, his wingspan is longer, and on top of that, he could knock down a three, maybe not quite as good as Marcus Morris percentage-wise, but he's not far off. I mean, he shot 44% from the field last year. I mean, anytime he's played, and every time you see him get on the floor, you see production. You see him causing turnovers. You see him getting a hand in there when somebody drives to the basket, trying to get a layup or a dunk. He puts a hand in there. Same thing Kawhi Leonard does. Kawhi Leonard is known for affecting the game in so many ways because not only him being an on-ball defender has been dominant throughout his career, most of his career, him actually, setting himself up to, find ways to spy on the guy who's actually spy on the point guard who has the ball, who's getting ready to penetrate to the basket. Kawhi put a hand in there, and sometimes it'll disrupt the player and they lose a dribble and then it's a turnover. It's going the other way for a fast break. Robert Covington does the same type of things. He's just not as good as Kawhi Leonard, of course, but he has some of the same type of attributes. And along with Paul George, he has some of his attributes on defense as well. And like I said, you could put Robert Covington at the 5 if you want to play small and have Nicholas Batum in there with Kawhi, PG, and, maybe Russ or something like that at times, and throw a different dynamic at a team where they really don't understand what you're trying to do or where you're coming from with the logic of the 5 guys you have on the floor. And if they do pick it apart, it doesn't really matter because you can go switch back and put Plumlee in there. And of course, Zubac can go back to the 5 as well. This is my point. When you have somebody like Robert Covington, that's such a versatile Swiss Army knife type weapon. There's no reason why he shouldn't be on the floor. There's no reason why he shouldn't be on the floor anyway, because there again, he doesn't hurt the Clippers because he can stretch the floor. He's not one of those those power forwards who's more like just athleticism, and doesn't really have a jump shot to go with it. He is a power forward who can guard 1 through 5 like a Nicholas Batum, which I think he's a younger Nicholas Batum. Shout out to him. But he's like a younger Nicholas Batum who can guard position 1 through 5 and knock down that 3. And that's the point with the Clippers. You got to have somebody to stretch the floor when they're on the floor. That's the point of the whole Clippers thing, because they don't have, when Russ is on the floor, you need all the shooters you can get. Now, I'm not saying Robert Covington is a shooter. He's not a shooter, but if you give him 5 3-pointers, he'll knock down 2 out of 5. He'll shoot 40% from 3. If you give him 5 3-pointers, hypothetically, he'll knock down 2 out of 5. And that's a fact based upon his numbers and what he's done, in the NBA throughout this time since he's been there. And even with the Clippers, he can definitely, contribute a lot more. And I think Ty Lue has to just let go of his ego and really start utilizing a player like that who can change the outcome of a lot of games, because his defense, when Kawhi and PG sits down, they're not losing much defensively with him on the floor. They have somebody who can cause turnovers and, like I said, knock down shots. And then when you put Norman Powell in the game as that 6th man off the bench, Norman Powell coming in with Robert Covington will make them a whole lot more formidable, because, like I said, they might have a 5-10 point lead sitting Kawhi and PG down for a while, but the lead still might be a 5-10 plus point lead when they come back, because, like I said, Robert Covington, he's the type of player who can affect the game defensively. And like I said, he can stretch the floor with Norman Powell, and coming off with T-Man coming off as a combo guard. That would be a hell of a backup system to have. You know what I'm saying? Then, like I said, you throw Russ with that lineup at times where they running the floor and going on fast breaks the whole time. I mean, they can really overwhelm a lot of teams. And then when Kawhi and PG come back in, they seal the deal and put the nail in the coffin. That's pretty much how I think the Clippers should be ran. And I don't know if Ty Lue's going to do it that way, but there's no reason why you shouldn't be using Robert Covington. You traded for him along with Norman Powell. You got to use him, because honestly, Nicholas Batum is getting older, and I think this is his last year, as he stated, I believe. And then on top of that, Marcus Morris is getting older too, and he hasn't shown to be worth $60 million the last 4 years since he got in that contract. So it's like it's time to make a change. And it's time to do it for the better if you want to win a championship. But hey, that's my take on anything. Leave any comments, and we'll talk about it.